Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. First of all, apologies for my absence, but obviously we've had quite a lot of drama, and fortunately it was a significantly better response, I think, to what happened. It's not far away from my office, actually. I wasn't in the office, and the guys who work here told me that they could hear it all happening. It's about 700 meters. I pray for the departed, and I hope that we're not going to see something like that again. Coming to Africa, the African Development Bank have released their economic outlook, and their analysis shows that Africa's GDP is estimated at 3.5% in 2018, and growth for 2019 and 2020 is projected at 4% and 4.1%. Africa had a tough time in 2018. Borrowing costs spiked, currencies lost ground against the dollar, and stock markets retreated. In a plot twist, the African Union is questioning the CENI DRC's results and calls for the court to delay the decision, and will dispatch an AU chair to the Congo, and promises to accompany the DRC people in this process. And this is an interesting development because the SADC was largely ready to give Kabila a pass, and Tshisekedi, of course. 7th of January, I wrote, and I quoted, "It's not the people who vote that count, it's the people who count the votes." If you're interested in the communique of the high-level consultative meeting of the heads of state and government on the situation in the DR Congo, that link is on rich wrap-ups as well. The heads of state and government attending the meeting concluded that there were serious doubts on the conformity of the provisional results as proclaimed by the National Independent Electoral Commission with the votes cast. Accordingly, the heads of state and government called for the suspension of the proclamation of the final results of the elections. Same article I wrote on the 7th of January, I quoted V.S. Naipaul, A Bend in the River, marvelous book, do read about it. Do read it if you get a chance. It isn't that there's no right and wrong here, there's no right. Zimbabwe's doctors group says 68 have been treated for gunshot wounds after protests. Sudan, Zimbabwe, inflation, I'll get to it in a minute, heavy correlation. And 8th of October last year, I said one domino that has suddenly tipped over is Zimbabwe. I was talking about $9.3 billion of Zolas in banks compared to $200 million of cash in reserves. The premium on the black market, I called it voodoo economics, and I said that the straw that broke the camel's back was spending $1.3 billion priming the economy ahead of the election. Money it did not have. December inflation shock at 42.1% adds to Zimbabwe's woes. Of course, that's well below the 500 billion percent the IMF estimated it reached in 2008, but you can see the direction of travel. Interesting article by Ryan Cummings, Gabon Coup Attempt, a potential early warning sign, concludes by saying the degree of grievances with the government are also unlikely to be resolved, particularly given the prevailing socioeconomic conditions in the country. Add to that the questions regarding the capacity of the president to resolve these quandaries, and last week's coup attempt might be a sign of worsening instability for the Bongo family's dynastic reign over Gabon. But clearly, the French remain very much in charge. If they want him to go, he's gone in a puff of smoke, and if they don't, he'll stay on. But it's become a very unstable situation. In particular, there seems to be a conflict between Nuruddin, Bongo's son, and his half-brother. And this is what I said in an interview a few days ago on Al Jazeera. I said, what we're watching across this continent, whether it's Gabon, Sudan, DR Congo, I should include Zimbabwe, is a kind of tipping point moment. South African all shares up 1.33% this year, dollar versus rand 13.7231, Egyptian pound 17.8955, Very interesting interview in Bloomberg with Nigeria's main opposition candidate, Atiku Abubakar, who said he would appoint a new central bank governor and float the Naira if he wins next month's election. This is what Egypt did, and I disagree with Sisi in terms of how he's governing the country, but on the economic side he did the right things, and I think Abubakar is saying exactly that. I don't think he's pursued the right policies. We have to have the right people in there. Central bank under Emefiele, Nigeria has tightened capital controls and closely managed the Naira's value. A former vice president, wealthy businessman with 26 children and 4 wives, pro-market approach, talking about the Nigerian National Petroleum Corp. There is really a mafia in there. People who benefit personally at the expense of the country, he said. But I have the political will and courage to do it. We don't intend to privatize the whole of NNPC, but reduce the government's interest to a minority and allow the private sector to drive the oil and gas industry. He accused President Muhammadu Buhari, a 76-year-old ex-military ruler, of planning to rig the February 16th vote. Fears of rigging are credible. He said the president was incompetent when it came to running the economy. The president doesn't even know what's going on around him. He's aloof. You can see that he's clueless in the way the country's been governed since he came to office. Abubakar says he admires Mrs. Thatcher, whom I do too. She was a great prime minister, an architect of the reform of the UK's economy and privatization, which I strongly believe in. And I think he's spot on. Nigerian all shares down 2.7% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange is down 0.4% this year. 19 people who are missing 2 days after the militant attack just across the road at the Dusit, an office complex that killed 21 people, are now accounted for. So the Kenya Red Cross. I found this curious in the justification for this attack. Al-Shabaab says it's a response to witless remarks of President Trump and his declaration that it was targeting Western and Zionist interests worldwide and in support of our Muslim families in Palestine. Why you'd attack such a place, I'm not so sure. Safaricom notched up 1 million users for its new overdraft feature on the M-Pesa platform in just 8 days, surpassing its CEO's expectations. Bob Collymore in Reuters. We got 1 million customers by day 8, and by day 8 we'd lent $10 million. Now we're probably at 15, he said. If you don't have enough cash, you simply draw down from the overdraft and you keep drawing down until you've got to your overdraft limit, which is predetermined by an algorithm. Collymore also said he would welcome any potential takeover of the smallest operator, Telkom Kenya, by number 2 operator Bharti Airtel. It's a good thing because what you create is an entity which has got at least 30% market share. There is a critical mass that any player needs to get to be operating sensibly. If the reported takeover of Telkom by Airtel goes through, it could render the competition report unnecessary. It will be obsolete. The conditions which you studied competition in the sector a few years ago are no longer relevant. Safaricom's had a strong start to the year. It's up about 12.5%, trades on a PE ratio of 17.246, and I think it's still a buy. Because I think at some point they'll make an announcement about porting M-Pesa across our border. Nairobi All Share is up 3.26% year to date. The NSE 20 is minus 0.4% year to date. And I wish you a tremendous weekend and thank you for stopping by.